Hello, welcome back to Cracking the Cryptic. Another miserable day here in the UK, but I'm hoping to brighten up my afternoon by taking a look at this puzzle, which is just a normal classic Sudoku that's coming from Gilly in Manchester. And Mark has tried this puzzle already, and he says it's good. So he's recommended that I try and live solve it for you, so I'm going to attempt that in a minute. Now, if you want to have a go yourselves, I think one of the best things about the channel is that you can do that. You just click on the URL link under the YouTube or in the YouTube description, and that should take you to a screen that looks very like this one, where you can play the puzzle on whatever device is your preference. So do have a go if you have time, and otherwise you can watch me. And let's go. What would we do with the puzzle? Fives, look. I mean, there's a 5 in one of those squares. Let's start there. Ones. These ones interact. There's got to be a 1 in that position. That means there's a 1 here. And can't do anything. So just a little tip, a very simple idea. If you get 3 in a row in a box, always scan left and right and see if there are any digits not appearing in this box already. You can see there's an 8 and a 9 here, so we can instantly do some stuff with this 8 and the 9. There must be an 8 in one of those squares, which means there must be an 8 up there. And the 9, there must be a 9 in one of those two squares, so there must be a 9 up there. So we find an 8-9 pair. Similarly, exactly the same now. I've got these 3 in, so I'm looking back over here. That's going to force a 7 into one of those squares, and we've got a 7 down there, so I can improve on that slightly. Effectively, we've got 6 digits now in row 4. These, therefore, have got to be 3, 4, and 6. So let's label those up. 4 here, 3 there, nothing. I don't think there's anything limiting that one. No. So these 2 squares, therefore, have got to be 2 and 5. We've got a 5 here, so go a bit further. That's a 5. That's a 2. 2 in one of those 2 squares because of these 3 2's interacting. 5 in one of those 2 squares at the top. 7s, look, they interact very nicely on this bottom left 3 by 3. Force a 7 in there. Now these 7s mean that there's a 7 in one of those 2 squares as well. It's a 5-7 pair we found. I'm not sure what. Probably can do something with that, but I'm not seeing what it is. Right, okay, but this 2, 3 are quite nice in terms of this box. Look, that's going to force a 2 and a 3 into those squares, which means we now know this is 4, 8, and 9. There's a 4 up here, so let's put that in. We can delete the 4 from this square. And now we've got effectively 7 digits in row 7. This must be a 1-6 pair, therefore, to complete the row. Can we resolve either of those? I'm not sure. I can't see how to immediately. Now this 4 means there's no 4 here, there's no 4 here, and there's a 4 up there, so there must be a 4 in one of those 2 positions. 2's must be in one of these 2 positions as well. Must be a 5 in one of these 2 squares because of these 5's here, look. Now this 5 is good because it rules out, well, it rules out a 5 from those squares. Therefore the 5 in this box is forced into one of those 3 positions. Now that's nice because it marries up exactly with the rows in which the 5 is going to appear in this 3 by 3 box. So we now know in both this 3 by 3 and this 3 by 3, the 5 is definitely in row 1 or row 2. It's not in row 3. So where can we put a 5 in row 3? It can't be here, it can't be here for the reasons I just said, so it must be in one of those 3 squares. We've already pencil marked the 5s in this box as being in one of 2 positions. Well, given we know it must be in row 3, that one is the only option. So now we can go 9s into one of those squares, 7s into one of these 2 squares, 6, 5, 9, 1, and 6, 3s maybe, 3 into one of those 2 positions, 6, 9, looking at this row now, we still need 2, 3, 8, 9 to complete this row, and there's a 2 and a 3 in that column, so that square is an 8 or a 9. And 8, 9. Right, I feel I'm missing something here. These 9s, look, that forces a 9 into that square. And this 8 means there's an 8 in that square. There we go. So now we can, well, what can we do? One thing I would say is that although Mark recommended the puzzle, and therefore it probably is a good puzzle, his solving style and mine are very different. He does like to bifurcate fairly early sometimes, so if he found a nice chain, you know, what could have been a very swift and nice solve for him may prove to be not a nice solve for me, because I tend to be a bit more plodding and well, it's a different sort of logic. He wouldn't like me saying he's not logical, but he is logical, but it's just a different style of solving. 6. I was also interested, actually, I watched a video he did the other day where he talked about pencil marking, and in a situation like with these 7s, he pencil marked 3 cells in a box, which I never do. So sort of a variation on Snyder notation. Snyder notation would only really allow you to notate, you know, as I have done here, where a 7 can go in exactly 2 places in a box. So I was interested to see that Mark extended that to 3 cells in a box. I'm not planning on adopting that anytime soon. Struggling a bit here, so maybe I should be adopting it. Now there is, right, yes, there is something there. 2, 3, 4 here. So this is a trick I've got relatively okay at spotting from the New York Times Sudoku. If you do the hard Sudoku there every day, this trick comes up sort of 4 days out of 7 probably. Let's have a look at column 6 and ask where we can put a 2, 3 and a 4. Well, obviously none of those squares can have a 2, 3 and a 4. These 2 because there's already a 5, 7 given, and these 3 because they're in the same box as a 2, 3 and 4. So that means we have to put a 2, 3 and a 4 in 3 of those 4 squares. Now look, we've already identified that this square cannot be a 2, 3 or 4. It is only a 1 or 6. Therefore, those squares must be 2, 3 and 4 exactly. So let's highlight that and see if that gives us anything. That one can't be a 2. That means there's a 2 in one of, well, we'd already identified there was a 2 in one of these 2. 4 there, that can't be a 4. There's a 2, 3 pair immediately then. So this square now can only be an 8 or a 9. And Well, the first thing I'm noticing there is, look, nines. Nines in columns 4 and columns 5 are now locked into these same, well, they're locked in two different 3x3 blocks. They're locked into the same columns. So same trick as before. Where can we put a 9 now? In column 6. Can't be here, can't be in any of those, so it's got to be in one of these three. There's a 9 there, so if we get another pencil mark. And here's something rather nice. Here is something rather... Now, this square. There's a beautiful pattern here. There is a beautiful pattern. So this 8 now, because previously we knew the 8 wasn't in one of those two squares, but now this 2, 3, 4 triple limits this square to a 3 or a 4, the 8 is forced into one of those two positions. And that 8, look at that, it marries up with the 8s down here. So we now know that in this top 3x3 box, the 8 is going to be forced over here as well as the 9. So maybe this is how Mark's, if Mark's pencil marking 3 cells in a row, he would automatically fill in the 8s there. But there's now there's a heck of a lot of restrictions on where 2 8s and 9s can go. So we can't have 2, 8 and 9 in any of those squares. We can't have 2, 8 and 9 here. And we can't have 2, 8 and 9 here in row 1 of the grid. Which means there are only 3 squares left where the 2, 8 and 9 can go. And it's those 3. Now that is really cool. Now, is it useful? Well, it is. I can see it's useful over here. If this square can only be a 2, 8 and 9, it definitely can't be a 7. So I'm going to get a 7 from it. But let me just look over here first. So that's got to be a 2 or an 8 then. It's going to be an 8 or a 9. And that is not a 7. So this is a 7. Therefore this is a 7. This is 2 or 8. This is 8 or 9. There's a heck of a lot of 8, 9 pairs in this puzzle as well, or 8 cells that can only be 8 or 9. I'm just going to check. So if this is 2, 8, 9, the other squares in this row have got to be 1, 4, 5 and 7. So there must be a 4 in one of these two squares. That's got to be a 5 or a 7, which marries up, look at that, with that 5, 7 below it. It's got to be 1, 4 or 7, I think. Let's just take a look at this pair that we've just discovered here and see if that tells us anything new. So we now need 3, 6, 8 and 9. So that's got to be a 3 or a 6. So many squares that are being reduced to pairs. Now, okay, so Now, that's interesting. That is interesting. Right, so there's an X-wing here now. So because this square is restricted, it's always worth wondering what the elimination of numbers from this square means. Now, if we look at the number 1 in the context of this column, 1 could previously have been in this square, and only because we found this hidden triple on 2, 8 and 9 is 1 eliminated from this square. So let's ask whether that's important. And you can see, if we look down the column, 1 can go here, but now it can only go there as well. I just want to colour those in, because the other very restricted column we've discovered in this puzzle, which I'm almost certain is hand designed, I mean this cannot be an accident. If we look down column 6 where we found our 2, 3, 4 triple, this square can be a 1, and that square can be a 1. This one can't be a 1 because we found the 2, 8, 9 triple. So it's actually an extremely beautiful puzzle. Now, I'm almost sure this isn't how Mark solved it. I may well be overcomplicating this because Mark doesn't use X-wings at all. And maybe this won't work, but there's certainly an X-wing on 1s here. So what does it mean if we can locate the 1s into exactly 2 positions in this column, exactly 2 positions in this column? Well, it means however the 1s are arranged in the finished solution, there will either be a 1 here and a 1 here, or there will be a 1 here and a 1 here. They are the only 2 scenarios that can exist. Now you'll note that in both those scenarios there was a 1 in either this position or this position, and either this position or this position. So there can be no 1 in that square. Now, is that enough? 2, 6, 8. Yes. Because now, this square, looking at the row, before it could have been 1, 2, 6 and 8. Now we've just eliminated a 1, so it can be 2, 6 or 8. And there's a 2 or 8 in the column, so that square can be a 6 only. Now let's hope that cracks it. If it does, I think it might, because that's going to give us a 1 down here. And that is going to chain quite handily through the puzzle, maybe. That must be a 1 now. Now, oh yeah, okay, so now these 2 are 1s. Obviously the 1 on the other side of the X-wing would also have told us that. But suddenly we are off and running again. This 6 means that's a 3, that's a 4, that's a 6. That's now a 5 because we'd identified that's a 4. That's a 5 now. It's the only place a 5 can go in the block. That resolves the 5 and the 7. And I think because so much of the puzzle was had been reduced to pairs, we're finally really making some nice progress. This square here can only be an 8 because it can't be a 2 because of that 2 there. Well, that's a 2. It's not a 2 anymore. There's an 8, 9 pair in the first row. 2 here. 3 must be here. That must be an 8. That should be a 7. That looks like it's working. This must be a 9. That's an 8. That's a 9. I really don't want to make a mistake now. That should be a 6, I think. 8, 9 here. That must be a 4. That means that's an 8. That's a 9. 2, 3 is now resolved. What a beautiful idea, this puzzle. This is, again, yesterday was an example of a day where I really got a lot of pleasure from solving the puzzle because I knew Christoph had designed it, and therefore we were being led on a very clever journey through the puzzle. And it was really quite something. And here today, again, I don't know that this one's hand designed, but it did feel very, very nice the way this 2, 3, 4 led into the 2, 8, 9, led into the X-wing. That was gorgeous stuff. 6 here. Stop talking, Simon, get on with it. That's a 3. Now here we need 2, 3 and 6 to complete this puzzle, hopefully. Yes. So that's how I would do it. Let me know how you did it. If I've missed anything simple, I'll be very embarrassed as always. And if you're not subscribed to the channel and you enjoy this sort of thing, please consider subscribing. We really appreciate it. And anyone who's in a position to sponsor us on Patreon, that's massively appreciated too. It costs $2 a month, and we release a monthly special puzzle just for patrons. And for $3 a month, you can also access a video on how to solve that puzzle. So there's a bit of extra content there too. Thanks for watching. Back soon with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.